So you had mentioned this, and since you're going, incognito here, you don't have to be afraid to say this, but you had mentioned that there's only two chiropractors that are in the state of New York that do kind of what you do or are certified. And so what is it that you do? You said you can't advertise the
Oh,
fact.
that's correct. Yeah, absolutely. So the field that we're in is called chiropractic biophysics. All right. So there's probably about 30 doctors in New York State that are certified at the basic levels of chiropractic biophysics. In New York State right now, there are two advanced certified chiropractors of biophysics. There's only one instructor.
You're one of those two?
I'm one of those two,
Okay.
to really narrow it down.
So Dan and I got lucky here, talking to Dr. Heelgood here. So what do you do personally when your kids get sick? When your family starts to get sick, what do you do? Because a lot of people run to the doctor and go get meds right away or whatever. What do you do? And what do you recommend?
I think that's a great question. And
Before you answer that one,
Sure.
what do you do when you have a back problem?
Oh, that's great. See, I planned ahead. You cannot adjust yourself.
Right.
However, I married a chiropractor.
Wow, look at that.
So some people buy
That's
life
right.
insurance policies. I married a chiropractor.
She's a home cook.
That's
Great mom.
That's
And
right.
she's chiro.
That's right.
So yeah, what do you do for your family?
Okay, great question. So for myself, obviously, I get adjusted regularly. I personally get adjusted twice per week, and that's without injury. I do work out a lot, so I injure myself all the time. I injure myself working on others. Not to go off on a tangent, but in the world of chiropractic, our disability insurance is actually about 35 to 40% higher than our malpractice, meaning I am more, who knows more about the law of averages than insurance companies, I am more likely to hurt myself than hurt you, just from repetitive stress injuries and constantly over and over and over again doing the same motions working on people. So the fear factor, that should kind of, just calm that down.
Is that from, do you do manual adjustments?
I do.
Okay.
I do.
I've noticed when I've been adjusted, it seems like the chiropractor he'll stiffen his muscles. Is that a lot of what you're doing? You have to be very controlled and
You have to be controlled, and you have to lock out your particular joints. So it might mean we're taking up, think of it as a lot of, in a sense, slack. It's known as joint play. So we're using a lot of force to take that motion out, and then it's quick impulse. So you might feel like, holy cow, and then it's just so quick. So that's constant core and strengthening and holding that posture before the impulse. And then maybe right before that moment, you're not ready. Or you take a breath in when you were supposed to let it out, So there's and then multiply that by hundreds in just a day. In the world of like my family, if my children happen to come home from school, even with the sniffles, we immediately adjust. That's the very first thing we do. We're all about stimulating the nervous system so that our bodies can actually start working more optimally, and it's like kicking in your immune function. And there's actually studies on that. There's actually a study on a serum thiol study where they would take your blood first, you would get adjusted, they would draw blood 20 minutes after, and they would see the immunological changes actually increase from the adjustment in that 20-minute period of time. So when you are ill, the best thing you can do naturally is to get adjusted. So when people have the flu and they go, oh, geez, I can't make it in today, I'm sick, we say, get in here, unless, it's coming out of every orifice, try to get in here, So we encourage that. So that's what we do with our family.
So I just have a little question here.
Yeah, absolutely.
I have IBS, an early onset Crohn's.
Okay, sure.
And my chiropractor's done adjustments, but he's not a biophysics chiropractor.
Mm-hmm.
So just to use that as an example, what would you do to help with the digestive issues?
Sure. So there's definitely certain areas within the spine that innervate, that whole area, okay? So we want to find out, are there any issues with the structure right there, which is where the nerves come out, that innervate the viscera that controls that. So it's not us curing IBS by any means. But if we can find where is that stress being placed so that we can remove it, then it allows your body to function more optimally. So it would really come down to finding out, hey, let's take some pictures of your spine first while standing, So we can say, hey, is there any stress from the frontal plane, if you will? And let's look at you sagittally. Let's look at you from the side. And do you have too much curve in your mid back? Not enough curve in the low back, because that junction there is what's innervating this whole area. So we can find out if you don't have enough, we can add that in. Mm-hmm. And if you have too much, well, we'll have to take out. Yeah, that way we're taking stress off the nerves. And you know what? It's a very blanketed and almost a bland response. But think of it like this. If your car was parked on the garden hose and you have this beautiful garden over here, the medical model would be like, well, let's turn that pressure up. Mm-hmm. And you know what? Let's stick some Drano in there. And if that kind of hurts, well, we'll put some Vicodin in there too. If that doesn't work, keep putting more in there. Okay? Yep. And the chiropractic approach is this. Yeah. All right, we're not going to probably cure that over there, but what we're going to do is find out, well, where's that restriction? Mm-hmm. And let's just remove it, and we're going to let things flow, and now let's see what happens to the garden. Right. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So I know it's very bland in a sense, or very...
No, that's a really good way to put it.
Not at all. Yeah. That is a much better response than the doctor who did my scopes this past summer was. He said, I think you might have IBS. Try some diet changes, and walked out of the room.
Oh, that's awful. Yeah, I mean, who wants...
Excuse me? Yeah, I just paid you like $5,000.
That's awful. Yeah, I think a little bit better explanation, or at least some sort of program of care would have been nice. I mean, the diet world is so abstract and such a multi-billion-dollar business. When people hear diet, they think that drinking Diet Coke is part of the diet, You can buy pills and they'll say it's for a diet, but they're loaded with all these awful, just noxious toxins and caffeines, and so the body definitely has a challenge with those as well. I mean, there's just crazy studies of where kidneys have even shut down from just taking diet pills because nobody evaluates them. They get on the market and they do this by the masses type of thing where once enough people complain, oh, well, then we'll consider taking it off. And that's the same thing in the pharmaceutical world, unfortunately.
I mean, vaccines aren't safety tested.
Is there enough time?
This is like a perfect segue, but so we'll just hold off for a minute on that segue, because my understanding is again, like a lot of us go with our gut.
Sure.
And I'm guilty of doing that like my whole life, but I feel like I've just always not gone medical. I don't really like the doctor. I like just the feeling of being in the waiting room, et cetera, et cetera. And it seems like every time I get sick, I get the fever, I sleep, I sweat it off. Sure. Like in a day, my fever's gone. I'm still a little sick, right. But usually about a day's worth of just sleeping it off, whatever. I don't do anything. Probably. So my understanding is that, like, as far as fevers go, like bacteria and disease can't live in temperatures higher than 105. So literally, when you get sick, it's natural to have that fever because it's cooking that bacteria and disease out of you.
That's correct. That's correct. In fact, they say, I mean, kind of the golden rule is, there's multiple sources, but 102.1, 102.5, that's where you still just, you ride it out, So it's awful because say it's your kid, and you'd much rather be sick than have your kid go through it. But at that same token, it's your body's natural intelligence that is saying, hey, let's cook this stuff out of the system so we can allow what we actually call innate intelligence perform, which is allowing your body to function optimally. It knows what to do.
Right.
We don't need to pollute it. We just need to let it happen. We think we need to add more. It's about releasing it so it can just work naturally. Yeah, just functionally optimally.
Yeah, because 102, when you're riding that, I mean, that is pretty unbearable at times, especially like for me. Sure. I had mono. And this is back in 2007. Mm-hmm. I played the biggest show I've ever played. It was a sold-out show at the Metro in Chicago.
Awesome.
I was just stoked to play the show.
Right.
And I got mono like a week before the show.
Awful.
I played that show 102 degrees on that stage.
Good for you.
It was the worst. I mean, it was just the worst. It was like the best and worst feeling at the same time.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I just ride it out.
Let's put it this way. We do wellness visits with our children once a year. And that's to make the schools happy.
Would you then recommend supplementing almost all medical care for a chiropractic, natural, nutritionist, herbalist kind of. Would you replace medical care with the natural
Okay,
care?
that's a great question. So I'd have to almost break it down into, in the world of proactive care, I would entirely replace that. I think that everyone on the planet should be going to some sort of chiropractor, just as they have a dentist, just as they have a general practitioner. Every single person on this planet has had some sort of trauma. I mean, all the stats show that. I mean, here's the issue. The stats are showing that 80% of the population has back pain at some point in time. But why are we waiting until we have pain before we do something about it? That would be like, let's wait till your engine seizes up, then we'll change the oil. But now we have to change the engine, and then we'll change the oil. We'll start doing that more regularly. So to me, in my opinion, it's crazy not to have a chiropractor. So to really narrow it down, I would say proactively speaking that when you go for a wellness visit, the majority of people get on a scale, and they're told that they're too heavy because almost all of America is obese. Not all, but, the percentages are high. We're talking like 70% now. Diabetes is up 300% in under 10 years. I mean, it's just these are all preventable diseases due to diet, exercise, and there's no chiropractic, and their bodies are just ballooning out, and nobody's allowing more nerve flow so they can function better to work out to lose the weight, because they'll say, well, geez, my knees hurt, my back hurts, I can't walk, so I can't work out, so I just sit more, so I eat more. See what I mean? It's a negative cascade effect. So really quickly, to narrow the other half. So I think medicine is fantastic for crisis care.
Right.
Okay, so you break your arm in a sport. You break your neck in a sports injury. Whatever that may be, a car accident. Crisis care and saving your life, incredible. I mean, incredible. I just personally believe that having your blood pressure going on a scale and listening to your lungs is not really a proactive response. Like, okay, just like that doctor did to you, your proactive advice would be like, oh, go lose 5 pounds. If you were a little bit heavy on your scale for your little wellness visit. That's like saying, well, go change your diet. Something's wrong with you here. You just did $5,000 worth of tests. Well, go change it. That's not really supportive care, Whereas a chiropractor isn't going to just focus on your spine and how you feel. Your subjective complaints, we're not going to just focus on that. We're going to focus on objective complaints, which might be things that we've seen in your posture, might see from the way you walk in, your gait analysis, might be.
Or you crawling.
Some people crawling. We crawl. That's what our sign says. Crawl-ins are welcome.
I love that.
The way you, just the way you even get in your car, So we look at all these things. And then you can figure out what areas are working, what is not. Is it just your spine? Is it spine and muscle? Everything's attached. So generally it is. But again, I think that you have to really start with that film to find out where we're starting from so we know where we need to take you to and then keep you there. Right. That's the key and that's where, a lot of people get upset. Oh, geez, you might end up going to a chiropractor forever. I don't know if you've ever heard that phrase, but we get it once a week in a phone call. Well, geez, if I come in, do I need to come forever?